Hey everybody, I wanted to make this video to keep all of you guys up to date with the Pro Chess League. It is ongoing, it's happening at the moment. There's matches played weekly on chess.com. We had a video released on YouTube that was headlining the fact that, guys, we've got Magnus Carlsen on our Pro Chess League team. We've got a big roster of players. Eric made a video outlining our roster, what to expect, and the format and everything. So I'll actually link that video down below. Check that out if you haven't watched it yet. But for now, I'm going to get into the action. I want to show you guys some of the exciting games and what the results were for the first 2 weeks of Pro Chess League action, and let you guys know when our next match is. So jumping into it, first of all, in the first week of Pro Chess League action, the chessbrahs, Canada chessbrahs, were matched up against the Charlotte Cobras. That's a team that is led by Daniel Naroditsky, who's likely a name that most of you guys are familiar with. But we have a very interesting game here that I wanted to show you from one of the matches. So very quick, there's 4 players on each team. Every one of those 4 players plays against everyone else on the other team. So there's 16 points up for grabs, 8.5 wins the match. In this particular game, we had our guy, Razvan Preotu from Canada, a grandmaster, up against Wonder Liang for the Charlotte Cobras. Our grandmaster here with the black pieces plays the move b5. And I've jumped right into the middle here, so we're not wasting any time, getting straight to the action. Bishop's under attack, and if it was to move away, there's hanging pawns everywhere. So in this position, white plays the move d6, immediately challenging this knight. And after a long line of exchanges and calculations, it seems like black's the one that ends up with a pawn shooting down the board. Instead, queen takes e7 might have actually been the much smarter decision here. But black said, what am I missing here? After rook d8, there's the move queen takes e4, right? You're losing your knight, and I'm defending my rook. But it seems like white was just one move ahead in the calculation. Queen b5 was played. That's pinned, and taking the rook does not help. There's no stopping queen takes bishop here. Even though your knight's under attack, queen takes here is about to lead to checkmate. However, insanely, Razvan here takes with check and then plays h5. Now, there's a rook hanging here. There's a knight loose as well. The king has an escape square. Black at least has a pawn, but white should be crushing here. This is with check. That's a free rook. I mean, look at the next moves. Check. Makes another queen on the board. But amazingly, after the move queen takes f3, white has to be incredibly accurate here. He did not find the best move, which would have been queen takes bishop, and that would have led to immediate mate, but instead played the move queen h8, a big blunder. And after king g5, queen takes e5, both of these guys playing with just seconds on the clock. There's only a +2 increment. King here, and white just fails to find the way through. And despite having 2 queens on the board, he's actually unable to win this game. b2 play. This rook can be taken at any moment. Queen d1 checkmate is what white did not want to allow. Imagine taking here and getting mated with the black king being a participant in all that. And black ends up winning the rook and going on amazingly to win this game. So we basically steal a point here that we shouldn't have gotten. So that was from Razvan, who had a great day of chess and ended up with 2 points out of 4. He was playing for board 3 for us, so that's a great result. And then there was this game between Magnus and Naroditsky. This was also part of the match. I just skipped to this moment to show you guys, he's kind of just trying to find a way in here. Daniel's got everything defended, all the weak points, but it's very difficult to break through with white. You could say you're better, but it's hard to be much more than that. Now after knight b7, king d3, knight c5, check, it looks like if you take, the rook just takes back. And again, every weak point is defended by Daniel. And Magnus comes up with something incredible here. Bishop takes on c5 and pawn to f4. Guarding the pawn on g5, saying, okay, obviously inviting the capture. And you might be looking at e5, but it doesn't seem to work. Meanwhile, the pawn is hanging. What the heck is Magnus up to? Knight takes d6. And I mean, bishop takes was played, but if rook takes on d6, rook takes h7, and there is actually checkmate in 2 threatened. And very, very difficult to stop without giving up material. Plus there's e5 coming. This is completely winning for white. So he gives up the bishop, sacks a pawn, and then sacks the knight. And bishop takes on g5 was played, but Magnus has the breakthrough he needed, and he goes on to win this game in pretty nice fashion by winning the bishop here, and the rest is trivial. So a very, very nice win for Magnus, and right when it looked like he couldn't top this off, the chessbrahs actually let the cobras catch right back up going into the final round, and with everything deadlocked, 7.5 to 7.5, and one last result remaining, this was what we were given. Let's flip the board to Magnus's point of view here. But Magnus was playing against a Wonder Liang, the board one from each team, and actually goes pawn grabbing here with bishop takes a2. And after b3, the bishop's under attack. If queen takes b3, rook a1 traps the bishop. Kind of funny looking. And if bishop takes, then all of a sudden rook b1, and you're dealing with this pin. Now, it looks annoying, queen e6 to get out of the pin, knight c5 is available. And if a5, a4 to guard that bishop, Magnus does get away with winning a pawn, but after knight takes f6, there's no queen takes, you got to defend your bishop. So you have to take with the pawn, and there's no stopping queen to h7. Kind of unbelievable, but Magnus is faced with a terrible, terrible position here. A wonder is bringing the queen in. Queen takes h6, rook e5. A thunderous move here from a wonder. Like, Magnus is dead in the water, and it looks like the chessbrahs are on their way to losing the match. Bishop b5. I mean, this is just cooked here. You can't touch the rook because of the pin to your own queen. That bishop is pinned as well. But here, bishop takes on e8 was possible. Absolutely. And then if takes here, something like this, and you're up a full bishop, and you'll take on f7 next. But instead, rook takes. And now after queen takes b5, although it's definitely worse for black, it's not lost, right? You have this a pawn, and white does not have a pass pawn just yet. Queen takes f7, a fancy move, and look at this endgame that Magnus gets into. All of a sudden, maybe there's chances, right? If that rook gets kicked off the a file, that pawn can really go. And I'll just let the rest of the game play out here because a wonder played really logical moves with the white pieces. Goes to make a pass pawn. Magnus kicks the rook out. This bishop doing double duty. That's why the bishop is so good at playing both sides of the board. And Magnus brings the king to e4. And all of a sudden, it's white who's like begging for a draw here. And he all of a sudden misplays, and he's worse. And it's Magnus who actually wins that position. As bad as it looked in the middle of the game, with Magnus's king out in the open, he actually wins this game. He goes a perfect 4 for 4 on the week and leads the team to victory in week 1 in the Pro Chess League, 8.5 to 7.5 against the Charlotte Cobras. Magnus scored 4 out of 4. We had Ariantari scoring 2 out of 4. He's playing for board 2 for us. We had Razvan Preotu with 2 out of 4 as well. And then we had Jennifer Yu, who scored a crucial half point in that final round to give us the 8.5, 7.5 victory. So pretty exciting stuff in round 1. Magnus debuted for the team and honestly carried. I mean, there's no other way to put it. He carried us. So going into week 2, we have a 1-0 record and we're up against the Indian Yogis. So we decided to field our exact same roster. So the same 4 players that played in week 1, but we have lots more players on our roster that we're waiting to use, but we decided to go with the same roster thus far. Now, the Indian Yogis, their team is comprised of Vidit Gujrathi, Raunak Sadhwani, Aronyak Ghosh, and Vaishali R, who's actually the sister of Pragnananda, in case you didn't know that. But their team is super strong. I mean, the talent that you'll find in India is off the charts these days, and they've got a couple teams in the Pro Chess League that are extremely, extremely tough. But jumping into this match, Razvan here with the with the black pieces, excuse me, playing against Vidit with the white pieces. So the Indian Yogi's board 1, and he's just slotted this knight into the f6 square. Pretty nasty check. Of course you have to take it, but look at the resulting position. The pawns are gross. You know, this knight needs to make its way back to hit the bishop, but it's such a long journey. And you'll see, just barely gets there. Queen h4 was met with knight f5. e4 stops that. And right when it looks like you're about to get mated, the knight shows up on e8 to save the day. Kick the bishop out. But you're not out of the woods yet. Right? White's got pressure here and decides to go for the move e5. Looks like a great move. Vidit's putting pressure on that pawn. The d8 rook is hanging. Knight g7 played so that if takes, the knight can swing to f5. Probably, I think Vidit should have still gone for that. But in this position, he decides to play g4. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. If the knight's on e8, you got this pawn keeping the knight from moving anywhere. If the knight's on c7, that pawn is keeping it out. If the knight's on g7, now you've got this pawn. So the knight actually has 0 squares across the whole chessboard. But Razvan comes up with an absolute cracker of a move, g5, just completely sacks a pawn and says, look, both rooks are doing nothing. You know, just basically staring at your own pawn. Same for this bishop. And black is the one who has control of the f-file and this amazing long diagonal from a8 to h1. And despite Vidit's attempts to defend here, I mean, Razvan came in with all his pieces. He's actually threatening checkmate here on f1. Queen c1 defends that, but I'm not sure it was at the forefront of his mind because while rook f4 was played, rook g4 is an incredibly big threat. Queen c2 trying to defend the rook here to get ready for this, but blundering. A very, very nice checkmate finish. Queen to f1, and of course Vidit resigned. If rook takes, then rook takes f1 checkmate. Very nice victory for Razvan, beating a 2700 player with a queen sack checkmate. Doesn't happen all the time. So this was great momentum to start things off in our match against the Indian Yogis. We move on to a rather disappointing result from from Magnus here. He's won every single game up to this point. Magnus actually, has dismantled the competition. 7 points out of 7 games. He's won every single game. Now he goes into this game right here against Vidit. This is in the final round of our match against the Indian Yogis. We actually got out to an early lead. We crushed round 1, round 2, it was all going well. Round 3, Magnus won his game. Everyone else lost. So Magnus won and then 3 straight losses from the other boards. And then in round 4, we actually got wiped out, 4 straight losses, which means we actually lost 7 games in a row. So it went from one of the most promising matches and a sure victory to, an internet meme. It's basically 7 losses. I can't even believe it. But as much as Magnus has done for us, 7 wins, the guy was unstoppable. I've already shown some of his nice wins. Here with the white pieces, Magnus is trying to push against Vidit. He's got a great position. Queen c2 lining up right there on the h7 square. And black's king doesn't even want to be there when the queen shows up. So already on f8, ready to run away. Rook c8, knight e4, saying, look, takes. I'm ready to invade on h7. And moves like f5 to keep me out are only going to serve to weaken the king. So knight d5 was played. And Magnus jumps in with knight c5. And after bishop takes, probably had the idea the whole time that, number 1, queen takes bishop is great. Number 2, queen h7 is fantastic. I can take that bishop back next turn. Of course, we've got g7 hanging. It's checkmate. But Magnus missed and was just beside himself at the end of the match when he checked and realized, of course, in this position, instead of queen h7, which he played in the game, amazingly, bishop takes g7 is forced mate in 3 moves. Bishop g7, king has to take, king g8 gets mated, check, and after king here, queen takes h6, queen h8, both of these moves, you'll see the knight and bishop working to take all these squares away. So all white has to do is deliver the mate like this. And Magnus was just beside himself, like couldn't believe that he'd missed it. Such a rare miss for the world champion, but it happens. You know, he's human. 7 points out of 8 is what he scored overall in the 2 matches, but this loss in the last round wouldn't have changed the overall score because everyone else lost as well. And we ended up losing this match 9.5 to 6.5. But we had 6.5 points at the beginning of round 3 with 7 more games to play. So it was 6.5 to 2.5. And the final score was 9.5 to 6.5 against us. So, I mean, just losing 7 games in a row is super depressing. Obviously a tough loss for the team to take. I want to show you this last game between Aryan Tari and Raunak Sadwani. Aryan here with the white pieces. I believe that this was the final round game as well. So this was round 4. The move G5 has just been played by Raunak. And I mean, I love this move. Super energetic, breaks up the pawns, and it just goes downhill for Aryan here so quickly. Although you're down a pawn as a result of this great G5 move, white can play C4, you know, rook D1, and eventually get a rook in here. The bishop has a lot of pressure. You can probably even things up. Black's structure is not fantastic. But rook E7 was played first, and now after knight E6, you have to be very careful. And Aryan just didn't see the danger coming, plays bishop G4, and amazingly, this rook is actually trapped by a very specific set of moves. King here, rook D7, rook takes bishop so that there's no bishop takes knight, freeing the rook. So you give up a full rook, and if Aryan takes back, then king here. And look, there's nothing more than a pawn that you could get for this rook. Black will have a rook and a knight against only a rook at the end of this, completely winning. So Aryan plays on with rook F1, but it doesn't matter. His rook gets trapped anyway, and if rook takes here at the end, black doesn't have to take that. Instead, could just take the full rook on D7. So just disaster for the chessbrahs in final round. Lost every single game, plus 3 games in the previous round, for a total of 7 losses in a row. I know. So we lose the match to the Indian Yogis. It was 9.5 to 6.5. We had Magnus with 3 points, Aryan with 1.5 points. Razvan got 2 points out of 4. And unfortunately, Jennifer Yu on board 4 wasn't able to even manage a draw in 4 games. But again, with the lineups that we're going with, Magnus Carlsen on board 1, to meet the average rating requirement to play in the league, our board 4 is going to be considerably lower rated than most of her opponents. And in every case so far, all of her opponents. So she's got a tough job on board 4. But I wanted to give you guys the highlights. I think there were some really exciting games. I'm doing commentary live of these matches. Our next one, just to give you guys an idea, is March 1st. It's going to be this Wednesday, March 1st at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and they're weekly matches. So it's a great show. Tune in. Magnus will be playing again. Our very own Eric Hansen will be in the lineup for this week, which is super exciting. And we just have a new look all around. So we're changing up our lineup. Going to have some new faces in there, but still Magnus on board 1. So hope to see you guys support the team. Twitch.tv/chessbrah. I'll be commentating 1 p.m. Eastern Time this Wednesday. All right. But this is where we are in the Pro Chess League so far. Chessbrahs have 1 win, 1 loss. We got another match this week. Hopefully we can win it. And the playoffs are coming up ever so soon. So hope you guys can come support us. Hope you like this video. And in the future, I'll be doing some more regular recaps of our Pro Chess League matches. But a lot of fun, and hope to see you there to support the team on Wednesday. See you guys.